No jury yet in the Sean Combs sex trafficking and racketeering and abuse trial. There are now 45 prospective jurors for the prosecution and defense to select from, but the judge now saying he wants to do a final selection on the jury on Friday.
To jury selection in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Combs will be present in a New York court this morning as he faces multiple charges, including racketeering and sex trafficking. Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katursky is there at the court for us.
Well, several prospective jurors already dismissed from serving in the Sean Combs trial one day after making it into the pool. The second day started with 16 potential jurors, but it was whittled down to just 6 by lunchtime.
ABC News has learned that a jury is expected to be seated tomorrow in the racketeering and sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs. More prospective jurors questioned today to make up the group of 18 people needed to officially begin the trial on schedule on May 12th. And
here in New York, jury selection begins this morning in the federal criminal trial of Sean Diddy Combs. Prosecutors accuse the former music mogul of abusing, threatening, and coercing people into what they say were elaborate and produced sex performances that were known as freak-offs.
Jury selection starting today in Sean Diddy Combs' federal trial. Prospective jurors are inside the courtroom now along with Combs. Federal prosecutors allege he abused, threatened, and coerced women into prolonged, drug-fueled sexual orgies he called freak-offs, and then threatened them into silence.
Giving the chosen jurors just one weekend before opening statements begin. That would be on Monday. And we're also learning more about the potential jurors and why others were excused today.
Plenty of famous faces have appeared at this courthouse, but never before has such a cultural force stood trial. And moments from now, they're going to begin picking a jury of ordinary citizens to sit in judgment of a chart-topping rapper and music impresario.
A question whether they or a family member was a victim of sexual assault or domestic violence. And those that researched the case quickly tossed out. Darla Miles is live in Lower Manhattan with more on what's keeping a jury from being seated.
Racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution charges. 5 counts and all. Let's go ahead and bring in our Rena Roy for the latest on this story. And Rena, good to see you again. In this story here, the judge criticized lawyers on both sides for failing to find qualified jurors and said, quote, "We are running out of time."
Charges of sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution. If convicted, he could face life in prison.
Cudi has denied the charges, but he's facing what could amount to a life sentence if convicted. Let's bring in ABC's Rena Roy outside that courthouse for more. Rena.
Victim number 3 has vanished. A juror just said out loud what everyone's thinking, that Diddy might be able to buy his way out of jail. And inside the courtroom, it's chaos. Packed rows, people getting paid to stand in line, and Diddy himself asking the judge for a bathroom break, saying he's nervous. Yeah, this isn't just another celebrity trial. This is a full-blown collapse of the empire. Welcome to the trafficking case against Sean Diddy Combs, a courtroom drama that's already spinning out of control before opening statements have even begun. Let's break this down. Jury selection has barely started in Manhattan, and it already feels like a Hollywood script gone wrong. Picture this. A federal judge holding a list of nearly 190 celebrity names, trying to find 12 unbiased New Yorkers who don't know about Cassie, Kid Cudi, or that wild story about a car bombing in 2011.
Bill, today we saw a number of potential jurors who had loose connections to this case. For example, there was a 31-year-old man from Westchester County who recognized Sean Combs as a famous alumnus from his high school and at one point felt comfortable enough to turn to Combs, look at him and directly say, "I don't know if you knew that."
One potential juror got dismissed because he literally couldn't stop using weed long enough to serve. Another woman told the court she's convinced the system is rigged and that Diddy's just gonna buy his freedom. She got tossed too, but not before leaving everyone in the courtroom shook. And that's just outside the evidence. Inside the court documents, prosecutors claim Diddy ran a 2-decade underground operation of freak-off parties, with drugs, abuse, and blackmail allegedly at the center. They've even subpoenaed a third accuser, a key witness. But here's the kicker. Victim number 3 hasn't shown up, and no one can reach her. If she never takes the stand, this whole case could unravel. But the real question isn't whether Diddy's guilty, it's whether he's untouchable.
For some prospective jurors, it's their views on Sean Combs' celebrity status as a global entertainment icon that eliminated them from the pool of 45 qualified potential jurors who may be selected to sit for the trial.
Because behind that courtroom sketch of a nervous Diddy in a designer suit, there's a war machine revving up. High-powered lawyers, jury consultants, and a defense team ready to spin this story into something else entirely. And we're just getting started. So here's where things go from messy to downright dangerous for the prosecution. In a case already crawling with celebrity cameos and explosive allegations, victim number 3 was supposed to be a game changer, a key witness, a woman whose testimony could solidify years of patterns, coercion, threats, and what prosecutors describe as freak-offs, drug-fueled, high-profile underground parties that weren't just scandalous, they were allegedly criminal. But now, she's vanished. Not metaphorically, literally. The feds can't find her. Even after issuing a subpoena, reaching out to her attorney, and getting the judge involved, they've admitted she may not show up. She doesn't live near the New York courthouse, and as of now, she's ghosted both the government and the trial that hinges partly on her voice. The judge isn't taking it lightly. He's already ordered the prosecution to exhaust every option to track her down and bring her in. But behind closed doors, everyone's sweating. Because losing her testimony wouldn't just be a logistical problem.
One man saying, "I believe there are wealthy celebrities, people who live outside of the law and don't believe the law applies to them."
It would be a narrative collapse. See, victim number 3 was part of the connective tissue, not just a one-off claim, but part of a broader timeline from 2004 to 2024. 20 years of alleged abuse, threats, and silencing tactics. Her story aligned with others. If she testifies, the prosecution can show a pattern. If she disappears, Diddy's lawyers can argue this whole case is stitched together with old headlines and hearsay. And make no mistake, Diddy's team is already prepping that angle. They're calling the relationships consensual, framing everything as part of a swinger lifestyle, and claiming this is just a well-funded attack on a powerful black businessman. But with victim number 3 missing, that argument gains traction. And let's be honest, there's a reason why the defense wants to bury her story. Because if she speaks, she could anchor the whole timeline. She's not a tabloid moment. She's the kind of voice that rattles juries. But until she walks into that courtroom, she's just a name on paper. A ghost witness, a potential deal breaker. And time's running out. If you thought the witness situation was wild, wait till you hear about what's happening with the jury. Day 2 of jury selection felt less like a legal procedure and more like a reality show meltdown, and not the kind anyone could script. Out of the 150-plus potential jurors called in, the courtroom quickly turned into a confessional booth for chaos.
He was dismissed, and there was a woman with friends in the music industry telling the court, "My opinion, knowing a little bit more, probably would make me somewhat biased, I would say."
One prospective juror straight up admitted he couldn't go 8 weeks without smoking weed. He looked the judge in the eye and said, "I can't do this sober." That was strike 1. Then came juror 48, and she wasn't holding anything back. When asked about her ability to be impartial, she said what everyone else whispers, that Diddy would buy his way out of this entire trial. When the judge pressed her for what she meant, she doubled down. "Just what I wrote. The system is rigged." Mic drop, and just like that, she was dismissed, but not before rattling the room. These aren't just random outbursts. They're a reflection of something deeper, the public's mistrust in celebrity justice. The idea that if you're rich enough, powerful enough, you don't get held accountable like everyone else. And that fear, it's now sitting right at the heart of this trial. Even Judge Aaron Subramanian had to crack a joke to lighten the tension. After reading the ridiculously long list of names, 190-plus people who might be mentioned during the trial, he quipped it was like reading an appendix from Lord of the Rings. The courtroom laughed. But let's be honest, this isn't fantasy fiction. This is real life with real stakes. Among those celebrity names,
For third day, the 55-year-old wearing slacks, a white-collared shirt under a navy sweater. When court resumes Friday morning, Diddy's legal team will be able to exclude any 10 jurors they don't want.
Kid Cudi, Michelle Williams, Lauren London, and of course, Cassie Ventura, whose history with Diddy could reshape this entire case. Every juror was asked if they knew these people. A shocking number said no. Some viewers online think they were lying, playing dumb to get on the case or off of it. Because here's the thing, jury duty doesn't pay well. Some want in for the fame, others want out for sanity. And Diddy's team? You better believe they're watching every move. But they weren't the only ones playing chess, because behind the scenes, Diddy brought in a secret weapon. And she's got a reputation for turning trials upside down. While the courtroom was buzzing over jurors and celebrity name drops, Diddy was quietly making his most strategic move yet. And no, it wasn't just another high-priced lawyer. It was Linda Morano, a name you probably don't know. But by the end of this trial, you definitely will. She's not a lawyer, she's not a publicist. She's a jury consultant, and in the high-stakes world of criminal trials, that makes her the real MVP. Her job? To handpick the perfect jury, not just based on what they say, but how they think, what they post, who they follow, and what triggers their emotions. She digs into everything: social media history, body language, tone, politics, even what TV shows they binge. And she's not cheap. This is a no room for error hire. In fact, she helped acquit a Florida professor on 8 counts in a 2005 case that should have buried him. She's like the Olivia Pope of...
And federal prosecutors will be allowed to dismiss 6 jurors they don't want. The rest is up to the judge. Some potential jurors quickly ruled out, bringing moments of levity to the high-stakes jury selection process.
Jury dynamics. If you're facing decades in prison, you call Linda. Now pair that with Diddy's 8-person defense squad, and it's clear he's not walking into this trial to take the fall. He's here to fight, and he's fighting dirty and smart. He's bringing in big names like Mark Agnifilo, Xavier Donaldson, and Tenny Garagos. Yep, daughter of the famed Mark Garagos. Add Nicole Westmoreland, and you've got a dream team armed with headlines, racial bias angles, and a plan to make Diddy look like the victim, not the villain. In fact, he's already leaning into that narrative, recently saying, "I got my second black lawyer while the feds have none." It's a calculated move, one meant to frame this case as not just legal, but cultural. And remember, the jury matters more than evidence. That's the cold truth of courtroom reality. If Linda Morano can craft a group sympathetic to Diddy, if the team can sow just enough doubt about the accuser's motives, this could all flip. But there's one big problem. The prosecutors still have receipts, and they're about to unload them. If Diddy's defense team is bringing brains, money, and manipulation, the feds are bringing ammo. Let's start with the 2016 surveillance footage, the one prosecutors plan to introduce in court. It allegedly shows Diddy attacking Cassie Ventura in a hotel hallway. This isn't tabloid gossip or secondhand drama. This is hard evidence, time-stamped and visual.
Judge Arun Subramanian, seeming rather amused, asking a potential juror, "Can you tell me how you know the judge in this case?" He answered, "We've been friends of 10 years. People in the courtroom overheard laughing under their breaths.
And many of the potential jurors, yeah, they've already seen it. Then there's the freak-offs. That's not a rumor. That's the official term prosecutors are using to describe the events that Diddy allegedly orchestrated. These weren't your average industry after-parties. According to court documents, these gatherings were filled with drugs, pressure, and people who didn't feel like they could say no. The language used is chilling. Coercion, threats, intimidation, and it gets weirder. During federal raids on his properties, investigators found something that reads more like a script from a twisted movie than a legal brief. Over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. Just think about that. A literal stockpile, enough to raise serious eyebrows and questions. To the prosecution, this isn't just bizarre, it's part of the pattern. A pattern they claim spans 2 full decades, from 2004 to 2024. They're painting a picture of an empire built not just on music and money, but manipulation, secrecy, and control. Their argument is simple. This wasn't partying gone too far. This was organized, it was deliberate, and it was sustained by a culture of silence.
Courtroom bursting into laughter after a potential juror was asked, "Where do you work?" His answer, "MDC Brooklyn." Combs' attorney responding, "Can we get normal visiting hours?"
One that victims are finally breaking. But here's where it gets risky for them. Without live testimony from victim number 3, and with Diddy's lawyers ready to spin everything as consensual and sensationalized, the evidence has to land hard. There can't be confusion, no gray area. The jury needs to feel the weight of those years, those patterns, and those people. Because if the timeline fractures, if even one juror hesitates, that's all Diddy needs. You'd think this was the Met Gala or a sneaker drop the way people are lining up outside the courthouse. But no, this is the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs, and it's turned into a full-on media circus without any cameras allowed inside. Let's break this down. The trial is open to the public, technically, but with limited seats and 0 live coverage, people are paying others to stand in line for them just to snag a spot in the courtroom gallery. It's wild. Some reports say folks are getting paid cash just to wait, like they're concert seat holders or street-level scalpers. And once you're in, don't expect to see much. There are no TV cameras, no smartphones, not even still photographs. The only glimpse the public gets is through old-school sketch artists, pencil drawings in 2025. Meanwhile, a federal trial with explosive celebrity testimony and billion-dollar stakes unfolds behind closed doors. Why the blackout? It's New York law. Federal courtrooms aren't televised. But in this case, it's driving even more chaos. Because what you can't see...
With MDC Brooklyn, the federal jail where Combs has been held since his September arrest. Now, Bill and Sade, let me explain to you what's going to happen on Friday. Those 45 prospective jurors will not have to return. It will be the prosecution, the defense, and the judge. They will narrow down the number of jurors, and those who are ultimately selected will just get a phone call to say it's go time, and they need to show up first thing Monday morning.
You speculate about, and when you've got names like Michael B. Jordan and Cassie Ventura floating around, you know people are going to start filling in the blanks. Now here's where it gets darker. The NYPD has issued warnings about possible gang presence around the courthouse. Why? Because of Diddy's past affiliations and concerns that the high-profile nature of this trial might attract individuals with agendas. The crowds aren't just press and the curious public. They're a volatile mix of supporters, critics, and unpredictable energy. Add all of this together, the blacked-out coverage, the paid lines, the police presence, and what you've got isn't just a trial. It's a spectacle, and Diddy's defense knows that. They're playing to the optics as much as they are to the law. Every suit he wears, every glance at the jury, it's all calculated. But while the circus swirls outside, the real battle is happening behind closed doors. Let's be real. This isn't just about headlines or TMZ clips. This is a federal criminal trial, and if the jury believes even part of what the government's alleging, Sean Diddy Combs could spend the rest of his life in prison. He's facing a 5-count indictment, including racketeering, conspiracy, trafficking, and transporting individuals across state lines for illicit purposes. These aren't misdemeanors. These are the kinds of charges you build over years, with wiretaps, subpoenas, victim interviews, and piles of digital evidence. And federal prosecutors, they don't play. They don't bring cases unless they think they can win. If Diddy's convicted on all counts, sentencing guidelines could land him with a decades-long prison sentence, maybe even life. Not house arrest, not probation, prison. But even if he walks out of this courtroom free, let's not pretend this goes away. His name has been dragged through a 2-decade timeline of disturbing allegations. Former colleagues have distanced themselves. Endorsements have quietly disappeared.
Combs rejected a last-minute offer to plead guilty. His attorneys are out to convince the jury the government is trying to police consensual sex by a swinger who they say invited third parties into his bedroom.
And let's not forget the Cassie lawsuit, the settlements, the whispered stories from insiders that are suddenly getting louder. His music catalog, it may still generate revenue, but the cultural prestige is eroding by the day. His legacy, hanging by a thread. From bad boy for life to front-page defendant, it's a narrative arc no PR team can fix. And here's where it cuts even deeper. This trial is bigger than Diddy. It's about celebrity power, industry silence, and whether someone can build a billion-dollar empire on the backs of people too scared to speak up. Whether money, status, and iconic hits can buy immunity from justice. The jury selection continues through Wednesday. Opening statements are locked in for Monday, May 12th. And once that gavel drops, we're in it. 2 months of testimony, evidence, and courtroom chess that could define not just Diddy's future, but how the industry treats accountability going forward. Because this isn't a PR scandal. This is federal court, and the rules are different here. So let's recap the storm that's just getting started. The jury isn't even seated yet, and already we've seen a potential witness go missing, jurors get booted for blunt honesty, and nearly 200 celebrity names dragged into the chaos. Michael B. Jordan, Kid Cudi, Cassie Ventura all floated as possible mentions or witnesses. Some with direct connections to the case, some caught in the orbit of Diddy's crumbling empire. Then there's victim number 3, the one whose story could have connected the dots across 2 decades of alleged abuse. She was supposed to testify. She was subpoenaed. But now, she's vanished. And her silence could shift the entire outcome. Inside the courtroom, Diddy's team is treating this like war. They've brought in Linda Morano, one of the country's top-tier jury consultants. Her job is to find the people most likely to believe in Diddy's innocence, or at least to doubt the prosecution just enough to block a conviction. Meanwhile, the prosecution is loading their arsenal. Surveillance video, disturbing party details, confiscated items, and behind it all, a narrative they're betting will convince a jury that this wasn't just a series of wild nights, it was a carefully controlled machine of exploitation. But the stakes here aren't just legal. This trial is putting celebrity culture on trial. It's testing whether fame, fortune, and power can still shield someone in an age where public opinion moves faster than the courts. And it's asking, when someone builds a legacy through intimidation and silence, how long can it last? Will the jury see a charismatic music mogul caught in a media storm? Or will they see a predator hiding behind platinum records and red carpets? Right now, all we know is that opening statements are days away. And what happens next could redefine how we hold power to account, not just in the courtroom, but across the entire industry. So keep watching, because this isn't just about Diddy anymore. This is the beginning of something much, much bigger.